Ambassador Marcus straightened his worn uniform as he walked through the crystal corridors of the Galactic Council Station. The fabric looked cheap next to the shimmering robes of the alien delegates who passed him by. Some laughed behind their breathing masks, while others simply ignored the human completely. 12 elevated platforms held the representatives of the hegemony species, each seat glowing with the power and authority of civilizations that had mastered faster than light travel when humans were still discovering fire. Councillor Thane of the Corvain Empire raised one of his forearms to signal the beginning of the session. Concerning the human petition for continued membership in the galactic community, Marcus stood slowly, making sure to stumble slightly. As he activated his primitive-looking translation device, he cleared his throat and began to speak in the halting manner he had practiced for months. "Honored leaders of the galaxy," Marcus said, his voice carrying, "we humans come before you today to ask for your continued patience with our slow development. We know we are not as advanced as your great civilizations, but we are trying to learn and grow under your wise guidance." Councillor Vega from the Altarian Republic leaned forward, with what passed for a smile on her scaled face. "Tell us, human, what progress has your species made since our last meeting? Do you still struggle with basic fusion technology?" Marcus nodded eagerly, playing his role perfectly. "Yes, honored counselor, we have managed to improve our fusion reactors by almost 3% efficiency. Our scientists are very excited about this achievement, though we understand it must seem very small to your advanced minds." The chamber filled with the alien equivalent of polite laughter. What they did not know was that human fusion technology had surpassed their own by several generations, hidden away in facilities buried deep beneath the Earth's surface. The reactors powering their cities were deliberately kept at primitive levels to maintain the illusion of human backwardness. "And your military capabilities?" asked General Zorth of the Hegemony Defense Coalition, his massive frame casting a shadow over the human ambassador. "Oh, you mean our defense forces? We have been working hard to upgrade our particle beam weapons. They still only achieve about 40% of the power output that your basic infantry weapons produce. We hope someday to reach maybe 60% if we can figure out the plasma containment problems we keep having." The truth was far different. Human particle weapons could slice through hegemony battle armor like paper, but the tests were conducted in secret facilities on the dark side of the moon. Every failure Marcus described was carefully staged to feed false intelligence to the alien powers who monitored human communications.
Eyes.
"What about your space fleet?" pressed Admiral Corax from his position near the top of the chamber. "Intelligence reports suggest you have been building new vessels." "Oh yes," Marcus replied with the enthusiasm of someone sharing good news. "We have completed construction of 3 new exploration ships this year. They can achieve almost 1.2 times light speed, which we think is very impressive for us, though we know your ships travel much faster. We hope these vessels will help us contribute more to galactic trade by carrying cargo between systems." The aliens nodded approvingly at what they saw as humanity's continued limitations. They had no idea that the human fleet consisted of over 200 advanced warships, each capable of speeds that would make their fastest interceptors look stationary. These vessels traveled under perfect cloaking technology while disguised. As simple cargo haulers and mining ships spread throughout known space, Councillor Thane waved dismissively. "Very well, human. Hegemony will continue to tolerate your species' presence in galactic affairs. Perhaps in a few centuries you will develop enough to become useful trading partners. Until then, you may continue to benefit from our protection and guidance." "Thank you, great counselor," Marcus said, bowing deeply. "We are forever grateful for your wisdom and patience. Humanity pledges to continue working hard to earn our place among the stars." As the session ended and the delegates began to file out, Marcus gathered his simple recording equipment and prepared to leave. Several alien representatives approached him with condescending offers to help humanity with their development problems. In exchange for mining rights to various human colonies, Marcus accepted their business cards with appropriate gratitude. While mentally noting which species were most interested in exploiting what they saw as human weakness, the walk back to his quarters gave Marcus time to think about the real purpose of these meetings. Every word spoken in the council chamber was being transmitted to analysts on Earth, who studied alien reactions and learned more about their military capabilities, political structures, and economic weaknesses. The hegemony species believed they were managing a primitive client state. But in reality, they were providing detailed intelligence briefings to their future conquerors. Back in his modest rooms, Marcus activated a communication device that appeared to be standard human technology, but contained quantum encryption systems that no alien government had yet detected. His report would reach Earth in minutes through relay stations hidden throughout the galaxy, disguised as harmless human settlements or research outposts. Phase 1 continues successfully, he transmitted to his handlers. The target species maintain their assumptions about human limitations. Intelligence gathering proceeds without detection. Recommend continuation of current protocols while preparation. For Phase 2, advances on schedule. Marcus then sat down to write his official diplomatic report, the one that alien intelligence services would intercept and read, while begging for continued acceptance and protection, the greatest deception in galactic history was proceeding exactly according to plan. Captain Alina watched the massive Corvani battleship drift past her viewport, its crew completely unaware that they were being scanned by sensors more advanced than anything in their arsenal. Her ship looked like a simple cargo hauler from the outside, complete with rust stains and patched hull plating that suggested years of hard use in the Outer Rim territories. The reality was far different. The bridge around her hummed with technology that would make the hegemony admirals weep with envy if they knew it existed. Holographic displays showed detailed maps of every major star system in the galaxy, marked with symbols that indicated human assets, alien military installations, and strategic resources. Her crew of 20 operated with the precision of a military unit while maintaining their cover as independent traders. Signal from the mining station on Kepler 7, reported Lieutenant Davies from his communications console. They have completed the geological survey and confirmed massive deposits of tritanium beneath the surface. The Altarian colonial government still believes it is worthless rock. Lena smiled at the irony. The aliens had been mining that planet for decades, extracting what they considered valuable minerals, while leaving behind the very materials that powered human starship engines. Her people had been quietly purchasing mining rights to dozens of similar worlds across the galaxy, always appearing grateful for the chance to work the supposedly worthless claims that alien corporations did not want. Any sign that local authorities suspect our real operations? Alina asked. Negative, Captain. They think we are barely managing to break even with our primitive extraction methods. The concealed mining platforms remain undetected 3 kilometers underground. Through her network of disguised vessels, Lena commanded what was effectively the largest intelligence-gathering operation in galactic history. Human ships operated throughout known space, their crews trained to blend in with the rough traders, and salvage operators who worked the dangerous edges of civilized territory. Each vessel carried sensors capable of penetrating alien hull armor and scanning their most classified technologies. Dr. Victor emerged from the laboratory section of the ship, his uniform stained with the residue of his latest experiments. He had been working for 18 hours straight, analyzing samples of hegemony shield generators that his teams had acquired through carefully orchestrated salvage operations. The aliens never suspected that the debris fields they considered worthless were being systematically stripped of every useful component by human recovery teams. The power coupling analysis is complete, Victor reported, handing Alina a datapad that looked primitive but contained processing power equivalent to an entire alien research facility. Their shield technology relies on a crystalline matrix that becomes unstable when exposed to specific electromagnetic frequencies. We can disrupt their defenses with relatively simple modifications to our existing weapon systems. Alina nodded as she reviewed the technical specifications. This information would be transmitted to research stations hidden throughout the Sol system, where teams of scientists worked around the clock to develop countermeasures for every alien technology they encountered. The hegemony species had been perfecting their military systems for thousands of years, but they had made the critical mistake of assuming that no threat could emerge from the primitive humans they barely considered worth monitoring. What about their communication protocols? Alina asked. Even better, Victor replied with obvious satisfaction. Their quantum encryption systems use mathematical algorithms that become predictable once you understand the base calculations. We have developed encryption software that can break their most secure transmissions in real time. Better yet, we can inject false data into their networks without leaving any trace of the intrusion. The implications were staggering. Human intelligence operatives could now read classified alien communications while feeding disinformation directly into their command structures. Alina made a mental note to inform Command that the network was ready to begin Phase 2 operations. Commander. Rex appeared on the main viewing screen as Alina established a secure connection to his training facility. Hidden in the asteroid belt of the Vega system, his face showed the weathered features of a career soldier, but his eyes held the sharp intelligence of someone who understood the larger strategic picture. Status report on combat preparations, Alina requested. Training proceeds ahead of schedule, Rex replied from his command center. We have completed simulation exercises against all known hegemony ship classes and tactics. Our boarding teams can breach alien hull armor in under 30 seconds, and our zero-gravity combat units have achieved kill ratios of 15-to-1 against simulated enemy forces. Alina was not surprised by these results. Human soldiers had been training in secret facilities throughout the outer system for years, preparing for conflicts that the enemy did not know were coming. They studied alien biology, learned the weaknesses of various species, and developed specialized weapons designed to exploit those vulnerabilities. How many operational units do we have ready for deployment? Alina asked. 12 full combat divisions, plus specialist teams for electronic warfare, sabotage, and infiltration operations. Each unit is equipped with armor and weapons that exceed hegemony military standards by significant margins. We are ready to engage on your orders. The viewing screen switched to show footage from recent training exercises. Human soldiers moved through mock alien ship corridors with fluid efficiency, their powered armor allowing them to operate in environments that would kill unprotected beings. Their weapons fired concentrated energy beams that could penetrate any known alien armor, while their defensive systems deflected particle blasts that would destroy conventional military equipment. Alina closed the connection and turned her attention back to the tactical displays surrounding her command chair. Hundreds of human assets were now positioned throughout the galaxy, each one appearing to be exactly what the aliens expected to see. Cargo ships delivered supplies while scanning military installations. Mining operations extracted resources while mapping planetary defenses. Research stations studied stellar phenomena while intercepting classified transmissions. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. Humans had spent decades convincing the galaxy that they were primitive and harmless, which meant that alien security forces paid no attention to human activities. Ships that should have been searched were waved through checkpoints with casual indifference. Personnel who should have been investigated were dismissed as too backward to pose any threat. The captain called Ensign Torres from the sensor station. We are receiving a priority transmission from the command vessel near Jupiter. Admiral Kane requests immediate conference with all network commanders. Alina felt a familiar thrill of anticipation. Kane only called emergency meetings when major developments required immediate attention. The network they had spent years building was about to be tested in ways that would determine the future of human civilization. Set course for the rendezvous point, Alina ordered. Maximum stealth protocols. This looks like the real work is about to begin. As her ship changed direction toward the outer reaches of the system, Alina reflected on how far humanity had come since those early days of pretending to be helpless primitives begging for acceptance. The galaxy was about to learn that the species they had dismissed as harmless was actually the most dangerous predator ever to emerge among the stars. Agent Paul adjusted his breathing mask as he walked through the corridors of the Altarian Defense Ministry, his forged identification credentials allowing him access to areas that should have been completely restricted to alien personnel. The surgical modifications to his appearance had been subtle but effective, giving him the scaled skin texture and modified bone structure that let him pass as a low-ranking Altarian bureaucrat. None of the real aliens suspected that a human walked among them, gathering their most classified military secrets. For 3 years, Paul had worked his way up through the ministry ranks, always appearing loyal and competent, but never outstanding enough to attract unwanted attention. His supervisors considered him a reliable desk worker who processed routine intelligence reports. Without asking difficult questions, they had no idea that every document that crossed his desk was being copied and transmitted to human analysts, who were building detailed profiles of hegemony military capabilities. Today, Paul carried information that would change everything. The Altarians had been developing new shield technology that they believed would make their warships invulnerable to any attack. The technical specifications were locked in quantum-encrypted files that only the highest-ranking officials could access. Paul had spent months earning the trust of Minister Keth, who had finally granted him temporary access to review the classified materials for a routine security audit. The data chip hidden in Paul's uniform contained complete blueprints for the new shield systems, along with production schedules, deployment plans, and vulnerability assessments. More importantly, it included detailed information about similar projects being developed by other hegemony species. Paul now knew exactly how to defeat the most advanced defensive technology in the galaxy. Admiral Kane received Paul's transmission, while his command ship drifted in the shadow of Jupiter's largest moon, hidden from alien sensors by gravitational interference and advanced stealth systems. The message contained more than just technical data. It included strategic intelligence that confirmed his suspicions about growing tensions within the hegemony alliance. Kane studied the intercepted communications that Paul had gathered during his time in the ministry. The Altarians were secretly concerned about Corvain military expansion in border sectors. Corvaini leadership was questioning Altarian trade agreements with neutral systems. Both species were developing weapons systems without informing their allies. Despite treaty obligations requiring shared research, the perfect opportunity had presented itself. Kane activated secure channels to human agents positioned throughout the galaxy. Agents who had spent years building identities within alien governments, corporations, and military organizations. Time had come to exploit the natural suspicions and rivalries that existed between hegemony member species. Lieutenant Sam worked as a communications technician aboard a Corvaini patrol vessel, his human identity completely hidden beneath biosynthetic implants that altered his appearance and genetic signatures. The Corvani crew treated him as just another low-ranking alien from a minor species they had recruited for technical work. They never suspected that he was systematically planting false information in their intelligence databases. Sam began his work by subtly modifying routine patrol reports to suggest increased Altarian military activity in disputed border regions. The changes were small enough to avoid detection by automated security systems, but significant enough to create patterns that would worry Corvaini analysts. Ships that had been conducting normal trade runs were reported as having unusual sensor configurations. Routine communications were tagged with metadata suggesting encrypted military content. Meanwhile, Agent Lisa operated from her position within the Hegemony Central Trade Commission, where she processed shipping manifests and cargo inspections for thousands of vessels traveling between member worlds. Her modifications to the database created the appearance of Altarian merchants carrying restricted materials through Corvaini space, while Corvaini freighters seemed to be smuggling prohibited technology to Altarian colonies. The beauty of the operation was that both sides would discover evidence that confirmed their existing suspicions about each other. The Corvani would find proof that the Altarians were violating trade agreements, while the Altarians would uncover intelligence suggesting Corvani expansion into their territory. Neither species would question the authenticity of information that supported what they already wanted to believe. Ambassador Marcus received his new instructions while attending a diplomatic reception on the neutral world of Centauri Prime. The gathering brought together representatives from all hegemony member species for what was supposed to be a celebration of galactic cooperation and peace. Marcus had been looking forward to this event as an opportunity to gather intelligence while maintaining his cover as a bumbling human diplomat. The encrypted message from Kane was brief but clear. Phase 3 had begun, and Marcus needed to position humanity as a helpful mediator in the growing crisis between the Altarians and Corvaini. His role would be to offer human assistance while secretly ensuring that Tensions continued to escalate. Marcus approached the Altarian delegation with his usual nervous manner, stumbling slightly as he introduced himself to Ambassador Vera. "Honored representative," he said with careful humility, "I have been hearing concerning rumors about difficulties between your people and the Corvani Empire. Perhaps humanity could offer our modest assistance in resolving any misunderstandings." "Ambassador?" Vera looked down at the human with barely concealed contempt, but political necessity required her to maintain diplomatic courtesy. "What could your primitive species possibly offer to help with such complex interstellar issues? We may not be advanced," Marcus replied, "but humans have always been good at finding simple solutions to complicated problems. We could serve as neutral messengers between your governments, carrying communications that might help clear up any confusion about trade routes or military activities." The suggestion was perfect. Both the Altarians and Corvani would be willing to use humans as intermediaries precisely because they considered them too backward to understand the importance of the information they were carrying. Neither side would suspect that their human messengers were actually intelligence operatives working to deepen the growing crisis. Over the following weeks, Marcus traveled between Altarian and Corvani diplomatic facilities, carrying messages that appeared to be attempts at peaceful resolution, but actually contained subtle provocations designed to increase suspicion and hostility. Each communication was carefully crafted to sound reasonable, while pushing both sides toward more aggressive positions. The Altarians received messages suggesting that the Corvani were willing to negotiate, but only from a position of strength backed by military superiority. The Corvani got communications implying that Altarian willingness to talk was actually a stalling tactic to buy time for military preparations. Both sides began mobilizing their fleets while publicly maintaining that they sought peaceful solutions. Agent Paul transmitted his final report from inside the Altarian defense ministry as emergency meetings filled the building with panicked officials. Military commanders were demanding authorization to deploy the new shield technology ahead of schedule, while intelligence analysts presented evidence of Corvani preparations for preemptive strikes. The Altarian government was preparing for war while believing that they were acting defensively against an aggressive neighbor. Similar reports flowed in from human agents throughout the hegemony power structure. The carefully planted disinformation had achieved its intended effect, turning natural political tensions into the foundation for open conflict. The aliens were so focused on their suspicions of each other that none of them noticed the human operatives who had orchestrated the entire crisis. Admiral Kane reviewed the intelligence summaries with satisfaction as his fleet prepared for the next phase of operations. The Hegemony Alliance was fracturing exactly as planned, with member species more concerned about fighting each other than watching for external threats. The time was approaching when humanity would reveal its true nature to a galaxy that had dismissed them as harmless primitives. High Counselor Thane stared at the evidence spread across his desk with growing horror and rage.
Ow.
The intercepted transmissions were clear and undeniable, showing sophisticated human technology that far exceeded anything the hegemony possessed. The communications revealed a conspiracy that stretched back decades, involving infiltration, espionage, and systematic deception on a scale that seemed impossible for the primitive species they had dismissed as harmless. "How long have they been lying to us?" Thane demanded of his intelligence chief, General Zorth, whose massive frame seemed to shrink under the weight of his failure to detect the human threat. "The earliest evidence suggests at least 50 years, Zorth replied, his voice carrying the shame of someone who had been completely fooled. "Their technological advancement appears to be genuine, not stolen from our archives. They developed these capabilities independently while maintaining perfect operational security. The discovery had come by accident when a routine inspection of communication relays had uncovered quantum encrypted signals that use mathematical principles beyond known hegemony science. Tracking the source had led to shocking revelations about human activities throughout the galaxy. Mining operations that extracted resources with impossible efficiency, trade ships that carried sensor equipment more advanced than military reconnaissance, vessels, research stations that monitored classified alien communications. Mobilized the combined fleets Thane ordered with cold fury. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier We will crush these deceptive humans before their conspiracy can threaten galactic stability. The order went out across the hegemony communication networks, calling 12 species to war against the primitive humans who had dared to deceive their superiors. Within hours, massive fleets began moving toward human territory, carrying enough firepower to reduce entire star systems to cosmic dust. The alien commanders expected the coming battle to last only days before human resistance collapsed. General Stone stood in the command center, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Martian surface, watching holographic displays that showed hegemony. Fleet movements throughout the galaxy. The facility around him hummed with technology that would have amazed the aliens who thought they were superior to human engineering. Quantum computers processed tactical data while operators coordinated, with human assets spread across known space. They are taking the bait exactly as projected, Stone reported to the assembled commanders who had gathered for the final phase of humanity's master plan. Alien forces are concentrating their strength for what they believe will be a quick victory. They have no idea what they are about to face. Admiral Kane appeared on the main display from his flagship, which had dropped its disguise to reveal the sleek lines of a vessel that could outfight anything in the alien arsenal. All units report ready for operation. The cloaked fleet is positioned and awaiting orders. Captain Alina transmitted from her position near the Corvani home system, where her ship continued to masquerade as a simple cargo hauler while alien warships gathered around her. Intelligence networks remain active and undetected. We have real-time access to enemy communications and tactical planning. Commander Rex checked in from his assault ship hidden in the asteroid belt, his voice carrying the excitement of a soldier who had trained for years for this moment. Marine divisions are deployed and ready for boarding operations. We can take any alien vessel within minutes of engagement. Stone nodded with satisfaction as he reviewed the strategic situation. The hegemony had committed their entire military strength to what they thought would be an easy conquest, leaving their home systems defended by only token forces. Human intelligence had provided complete information about alien fleet positions, command structures, and battle plans. The enemy was walking into a trap that had been decades in the making. Execute Operation Revelation, Stone commanded. Throughout the galaxy, human ships began dropping their cloaking systems and revealing their true nature. Vessels that had appeared to be primitive cargo haulers transformed into advanced warships, bristling with weapons that could penetrate any known armor. Mining platforms hidden beneath planetary surfaces emerged too, deployed defensive systems that turned inhabited worlds into fortress systems. The first engagement occurred near the Altarian border, where a hegemony patrol fleet encountered what they thought was a small group of human merchant vessels. The alien commander ordered the humans to surrender, expecting immediate compliance from the inferior species. Instead, the human ships opened fire with particle beams that sliced through hegemony's shields like they were made of paper. Alien crews watched in shock as their most advanced defensive systems failed completely against human weapons. Energy blasts that should have been absorbed by quantum barriers passed through without resistance. Hull armor that could withstand direct hits from plasma cannons melted under the concentrated fire of human beam weapons. Dr. Victor monitored the battle from his laboratory ship, watching as the technological warfare systems he had developed turned alien vessels against their own crews. Computer viruses infiltrated enemy networks through their communication systems, causing navigation computers to malfunction and weapon systems to target friendly ships. The hegemony forces found themselves fighting their own equipment, while human attackers pressed their advantage. Their adaptive algorithms are working exactly as designed, Victor reported to Stone. Alien systems cannot compensate for the systematic vulnerabilities we identified. Their technology is turning into a liability instead of an advantage. The pattern repeated across dozens of star systems as hegemony fleets encountered human forces that should not have existed. Primitive species that barely understood fusion power were deploying energy weapons that exceeded the theoretical limits of known physics. Ships that should have been slow and clumsy demonstrated speed and maneuverability that left alien pilots struggling to maintain formation. High Counselor Thane received increasingly desperate reports from his fleet commanders as the reality of human technological superiority became undeniable. Ships that had been the pride of the hegemony navy were being destroyed by vessels they had dismissed as scrap metal. Crews that had trained for decades in combat tactics were being outfought by enemies they had considered beneath notice. How is this possible? Thane demanded of his surviving staff as reports flooded in from the disaster unfolding across the galaxy. They are primitives with barely functional technology. How can they be defeating our combined fleets? The answer came from Captain Alina as she coordinated the systematic destruction of alien command and control systems. Human agents who had spent years embedded within enemy organizations began sabotaging critical infrastructure from within. Communication networks that the aliens had trusted for centuries started carrying false information and contradictory orders. Supply lines that had operated smoothly for generations suddenly failed as human operatives revealed their true identities and began their real work. Weapons factories exploded due to subtle sabotage that had been planned for years. Military bases found their defensive systems turning against their own personnel as hidden programming activated throughout alien computer networks. The revelation of human capabilities was so complete and devastating that resistance began to collapse within days of the first engagements. Species that had considered themselves the masters of the galaxy were learning that they had been manipulated by beings they thought were their inferiors. The primitive humans had been playing a game that the aliens had not even realized was being played. Admiral Kane accepted the first surrender from a Corvani battle group. His commander finally understood that continued resistance was hopeless. Similar capitulations followed as alien leaders recognized that they faced an enemy that had out-hot and out-preppered them at every level. The galaxy was about to change hands in the most complete reversal of power in recorded history. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of his flagship as the last hegemony battle fleet approached under a flag of surrender. Their weapons powered down and shields collapsed in the universal sign of defeat. The sleek human warship dwarfed the alien vessels that had once been considered the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Through the massive viewport, Kane could see the defeated commanders preparing to board his ship for the formal ceremony that would end the brief but decisive war. "Hi, Counselor." Thane moved slowly through the airlock, his forearms hanging limply. At his sides, as he entered the human vessel that represented everything his people had failed to understand about their former subjects, the corridors around him gleamed with advanced materials and sophisticated technology that made hegemony engineering look primitive by comparison. Human crew members watched respectfully as the former galactic leader walked toward his meeting with Destiny. The conference room where Kane waited had been designed to accommodate multiple alien species, with adjustable atmosphere controls and seating arrangements that showed careful consideration for different biological needs. Thane noticed these details with growing amazement as he realized that humans had been planning for this moment with incredible thoroughness and attention, to the comfort of their soon-to-be subjects. "Hi, Counselor," Kane said with formal politeness. As Thane took his place at the surrender table, "I accept your capitulation on behalf of humanity and the new galactic order that will emerge from this transition." Thane looked across the table at the human admiral whose species had deceived the entire galaxy for decades. "How long did you plan this conquest?" he asked with the voice of someone who had accepted complete defeat. "We never planned conquest," Kane replied with surprising gentleness. "We planned evolution. Humanity recognized that the galaxy needed better leadership than what the hegemony provided, so we prepared ourselves to assume that responsibility when the time came." The distinction was important and reflected the fundamental difference between human strategy and alien thinking. The hegemony species had maintained their power through military dominance and economic control, ruling over other civilizations through fear and dependency. Humans had studied these methods and concluded that genuine leadership required earning the trust and cooperation of those being governed. Ambassador Marcus entered the conference room with documents that formalized the establishment of the Terran Commonwealth, the new governmental structure that would replace the failed hegemony system. His appearance had changed dramatically from the nervous diplomat who had spent years playing the role of a primitive supplicant. The real Marcus was clearly a sophisticated political leader who understood the complexities of managing a galactic civilization. The transition will be managed carefully to minimize disruption to existing social and economic systems, Marcus explained as he presented the formal agreements to the assembled alien representatives. Each member species will retain control over their internal affairs while participating in a unified structure that promotes cooperation rather than competition. The terms were surprisingly generous considering humanity's complete military victory. Alien governments would continue to exist under human oversight rather than being replaced entirely. Economic systems would be gradually modified rather than destroyed and rebuilt. Cultural traditions would be preserved and protected rather than suppressed in favor of human customs. Dr. Victor appeared on the conference room display from his research facility, which had emerged from decades of secrecy to become the center of a new era of technological development. Behind him, alien and human scientists worked side by side on projects that combined the best knowledge from all galactic civilizations. The technological sharing protocols are now active, Victor announced. With obvious satisfaction, research that was previously restricted to individual species is being made available to benefit everyone. Medical advances that could save millions of lives will no longer be limited by political boundaries. The announcement represented a fundamental change in how galactic civilization would operate. Under the hegemony system, each species had jealously guarded their technological advantages to maintain competitive superiority over their neighbors. The new Commonwealth would pool scientific knowledge to accelerate progress for all member civilizations. Captain Alina transmitted from the former hegemony capital world, where human administrators were working with local officials to ensure smooth governmental transitions. The process was proceeding with remarkable efficiency thanks to decades of preparation by human operatives who understood alien political systems better than many aliens understood them themselves. Integration is ahead of schedule on all core worlds, Alina reported. Local populations are responding positively to the new administrative structure. Most citizens are expressing relief that the constant threat of interspecies conflict has been eliminated. The response was not entirely surprising to those who had studied galactic politics carefully. The hegemony had maintained stability through a careful balance of mutual suspicion and controlled tension between member species. Citizens had lived with the constant worry that political disagreements might escalate into wars that would devastate their worlds. The promise of genuine peace under human leadership was appealing to populations that had grown tired of perpetual uncertainty. Commander Rex appeared from his position overseeing the integration of former hegemony military forces into the new Commonwealth Defense Corps. The process involved more than simply accepting alien units into human command structures. It required rebuilding military doctrine around cooperation rather than domination. Former enemy officers are adapting well to Commonwealth protocols, Rex reported with professional satisfaction. Many express appreciation for strategic thinking that prioritizes protecting civilians rather than conquering territory. In integrated units is higher than projections indicated. The success of military integration reflected broader changes in how galactic civilization would operate under human guidance. The hegemony military had existed primarily to maintain the power of dominant species over their subjects. The Commonwealth Defense Corps was being designed to protect all member civilizations from external threats, while maintaining internal peace through cooperation rather than coercion. General Stone activated the communication system that connected Earth with every inhabited world in the galaxy, preparing to address the populations that would determine whether humanity's master plan would succeed in the long term. Military victory had been only the first step in a transformation that would require the willing participation of billions of beings from dozens of different species. Citizens of the galaxy, Stone began with the calm authority of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. Humanity accepts the responsibility of leadership that has been placed upon us by recent events. We do not seek to rule over you, but to work with you in building a civilization that serves the needs and respects the dignity of all intelligent life. The speech continued for several minutes, outlining the principles that would guide the new Commonwealth and the opportunities it would provide for member species to participate in their own governance. Stone spoke of cooperation rather than conquest, of shared prosperity rather than exploitation, of mutual respect rather than enforced submission. The response from across the galaxy was overwhelmingly positive as populations realized that their new human leaders were offering genuine partnership rather than simple domination. Species that had spent centuries fighting each other were suddenly free to focus their energies on exploration, research, and cultural development rather than military preparation and political maneuvering. Ambassador Marcus concluded the surrender ceremony by presenting the Commonwealth Charter to the assembled alien representatives, inviting them to sign as founding members of a new galactic order. One by one, the former enemies added their names to the document that would govern the next phase of galactic civilization. As the ceremony ended and the participants prepared to return to their respective worlds, Admiral Kane reflected on the success of humanity's master plan. They had achieved galactic dominance not through brute force or technological superiority alone, but through careful planning, patient preparation, and deep understanding of the civilizations they now led. Galaxy would be better served by human leadership than it had ever been under the fractured and competitive hegemony system.